Hello, I am Senator Ted Lieu, and thank you all for being here. And I have with me affected taxpayers. We have Assemblyman Jeff Gorell, Assemblyman Bob Wachowski. We have the NFIB as well as the Chamber, and then we'll have people speaking, including Brian Overstreet and John Grubb from the Bay Area Council. All of us are here today for a very simple principle, and that is the rule of law. More important than any single issue, whether it's taxes or health care or RPS standards, is the principle that we cannot retroactively change settled expectations. And that's what the Franchise Tax Board did recently when they went backwards 5 years in time and assessed people huge tax bills ranging from tens of thousands of dollars to over 100,000, sometimes over $500,000. So we've introduced Senate Bill 209 that will reverse that. It will hold those taxpayers harmless that relied on a qualified small business tax statute. It will then suspend the qualified small business tax statute for 5 years to pay for that and then restart it in 2016, so it's a revenue neutral bill. And this way we let Californians know and businesses know that when the legislature makes a mistake, which is what happened here, the legislature wrote a law that was found unconstitutional with some of its provisions. When that happens, the legislature will protect you, and we're not going to sock it to the people that relied on the law as it was written. And so with that, I will have my co-author, Senator Jeff Gorell, on this bill speak.
I want to thank the Senator for his leadership on this. I'm Assemblymember Jeff Gorell, also Vice Chairman of the Budget Committee. California, unfortunately, with the actions of the Franchise Tax Board, continues to send the wrong message to small businesses, investors, and entrepreneurs. Assembly Bill 209 would unwind the actions of the Franchise Tax Board, which is important because this is an issue of fundamental fairness. A tax policy is meant to affect conduct, to incentivize conduct that we favor and penalize bad conduct. What they've done here is inverting both of those. A retroactive tax increase undermines our state policy objectives to incentivize job growth. It discourages small businesses from having the confidence and the courage to hire that next employee as we come out the backside of the worst recession since the 1930s. And by assessing fines and interest on these back funds at no fault of the taxpayer, we use the power of penalization, which is normally reserved for bad conduct, against taxpayers who have conducted themselves in innocent good faith. I compare this, if I may, just a moment. This is tantamount to the legislature today changing the law on the speed limits of the highways of California, changing it from 65 down to 35, and making that retroactive for 5 years, and then sending a speeding ticket to every single driver who drove on the freeway in the last 5 years, assessing them a fine and an interest against that fine for breaking the law retroactively 5 years. It's simply an issue of patent unfairness. Yesterday, the Assembly Revenue and Tax Committee killed a companion bill that Senator Ted Lieu and I joint authored. It was Assembly Bill 1203, which would have prohibited state tax agencies from levying fines and interests on retroactive tax increases like that in this Cutler court decision. Assembly Bill 1203 was sponsored by Controller John Chung. We call Senator Ted Lieu and I and the coalition that's here that not only the individuals but the organizations, which themselves represent thousands of small businesses, we call upon the legislature and the governor to act on these issues so that we can send the right message to Californians that California is open for business and that we do not have a system that penalizes good conduct and undermines our efforts to penalize bad conduct. I would now like to turn it over to Assemblymember Bob Wachowski for some brief remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. I represent a lot of Silicon Valley, and you can imagine when the Cutler decision came down on December 21st, it was Merry Christmas, Silicon Valley, with this retroactive decision. Obviously, it shocked us when we heard about the Franchise Tax Board's decision, and many of the companies that are here and that are feeling the effects are stunned. This retroactive nature, as my colleagues have said about the decision, is patently unfair and potentially very damaging to what we come to expect out of Silicon Valley and all of California, this entrepreneurial heart that keeps this state economy beating. Even though our unemployment rate is high statewide, Silicon Valley and many of the high growth clusters around the state are leading the way in job creation, moving California ahead of other states in job growth. But startups are a key part of our history of California, and not every young company will be successful. You know, some will fail, but that's just as in previous times. When the economy is troubled and it's tough, we're coming out of a recession. Startup companies have helped us quickly get back on our feet. The legislative intent with the tax policy has been struck down, as Senator Lieu has said. We've made a mistake, but we need to embrace the startup culture and the risk-taking nature that California business people have. It sends a wrong message. That's clearly the Franchise Tax Board is sending along the wrong message. We want to spark investment in our small businesses in our higher tech sector. We don't want to say we're going to claw back and hit you with penalties. So I'm very pleased to stand here with my colleagues and members of the business community in support of this effort. If you'll forgive me, I'm in the middle of a Judiciary Committee hearing, so I have to go back there and chair them. But I'd like to introduce our next speaker. He has led the charge against the Franchise Tax Board's retroactive decision. He's the CEO and major owner of Adverse Events, a healthcare information company. Our next speaker is Mr. Brian Overstreet.
Hi, everyone. Well, this is my first press conference, so you'll have to forgive me. But I do want to start by thanking Senator Ted Lieu and Assemblyman Gorell, Assemblyman Wachowski. They've been strong supporters of this cause from day one. They all reached out to me early on in January and gave me their word that they would do their best to help us, and they've certainly come through in spades. And on behalf of the business community, I want to thank you guys both for that. That's really been great. In 1999, I started a company in San Diego called Sagent Research. There were 3 of us working in a room. We bootstrapped it. We didn't take venture capital. I went without payroll many times during the first 5 years where we lost money consistently. But through hard work, perseverance, and a little bit of smarts, we managed to grow into a profitable, thriving enterprise that ultimately employed almost 40 people in San Diego. I sold that business in early 2012, and at the time I did, I took the qualified small business exclusion that was afforded to me under the law. I paid my taxes in full through the estimated program and went on about my life. At the end of December, I got the notice that this program had been revoked, not only on a go-forward basis, but also retroactively. And you can imagine my chagrin or horror when I did the math and realized that I was going to owe the state an additional $250,000 as a result of this decision and action. Needless to say, I am not somebody who necessarily has that kind of money sitting around. I've taken the money from my first company and already started another one that also is growing and thriving in Sonoma County, employing people and trying to replicate the success that I had with my previous company. I am only one of 2,500 people in this state that have a similar story. There are 5 or 6 of us standing up here who have similar stories, different backgrounds, but the same exact situation. And what's going on here is just simply patently unfair, and it's wrong. And we certainly are looking forward to our opportunity to try to correct this in the legislature. And again, I want to thank the gentlemen up here for their support in doing so. With that, John Grubb from the Bay Area Council, I think, is going to talk next.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for bringing this issue to light. My name is John Grubb. I'm the Chief of Staff of the Bay Area Council. We represent hundreds of employers, primarily in the San Francisco Silicon Valley Bay Area. Our members see this, a lot of them are large companies, but they see this as a very, very important issue. First, based on hard data, but then also on the symbolism of what's happening. Small businesses are very important, as we all know, to job growth in our state. It turns out that since 1980, companies that are under a year old have added nearly 400,000 jobs a year on average to the California economy. We looked at some research that was done by the Kauffman Foundation, and that we saw that if this credit is eliminated, we could see investment in young companies in California drop by $1 billion over 10 years. Other states offer this credit, and so that affects how investors look at their returns. And so it's a business decision about where you're going to put some of your investment money. And so this will affect our economy. But symbolism matters too. And when this happens, or when this happened, and Brian sort of sounded the alarm bell, it was like a pinball of emails, and the whole issue went viral, and the whole business community now of California is watching what's going to happen here. And it matters about how the state treats companies. And so they are watching this, and in particular, the smaller businesses that are in California. And so it's our opinion that we need to reinstate the qualified small business tax credit, and in addition, we need to take care of this retroactivity issue, which is also patently unfair. And we really appreciate Senator Lieu, Assemblymember Wachowski, and Assemblymember Gorell for their work to try and replace this, and we hope that they are joined by a very large bipartisan family of other legislators and the governor in clearing up this issue. Thank you.
So those are their speakers. Any questions at all from anyone? Yes.
Yeah, I know that the Franchise Tax Board, at least I believe, they delayed collecting this money until this matter could be settled. Have you or Assemblyman Gorell or anybody else had communication with the Franchise Tax Board? Could they change their ruling, or is the legislation the only way to get this changed?
So we have had numerous conversations with them. Their position is that they could not change it without an act of the legislature. So we're going to put in the act that they need. What they're saying is the remedy they chose was something that they believe that they could only do administratively. If they wanted to do the current remedy we're suggesting, they're saying the legislature needs to do it. They are not opposing our remedy. They're just saying they didn't have the power to enact it.
And as far as you know, are they going to continue holding off collecting this until, I think they originally said 6 months or something like that? Or?
I hope they do. I think it was a good sign that they're holding off, so I urge them to continue to do so.
How do you respond to the criticism that the entire reason you guys are here is litigious tax lawyers who have tried to poke some holes in the tax code, and now if you guys get a bailout, the next court decision comes along, and those guys are going to get a bailout, and then it'll just go on and just opens the door for these types of rescues?
So I'll let Senator Gorell respond as well. My personal view is everyone has the absolute right to exercise their constitutional rights. In this case, Mr. Cutler not only exercised his rights, he was correct. The Court of Appeals said that certain provisions of this statute were unconstitutional. Whether we like it or not, that was the ruling. What the Franchise Tax Board did, however, was they took that ruling and then they went a step further. They then went ahead and struck down the entire Qualified Small Business Statute. There is nothing in that ruling that does that. So my view is they overreached, and so this is another reason we're bringing this bill, is to correct that.
I'll just add it was a bona fide program in place. I'll just add that the Small Business Qualified Program was a bona fide program. It's been in place for 20 years. And small business entrepreneurs and investors have relied upon that program. And for the tax board to make the decision that it did to unwind this to the extent that they did, they didn't need to go to that level. And they have sent a message and a ripple effect that we need to cure, or for fear that we're going to inhibit other decision makers in terms of investors and entrepreneurs from taking the next step to create their business here in California versus in other states. So I think that it's important that we do what we're doing here today, notwithstanding any of the criticism that may come about the lawsuit itself.
I mean, are you guys are a special case apart from taxpayers who have had to go through a similar
my belief is we should never retroactively tax people. And there's two reasons. One is the rule of law is the whole reason we're even here. And it affects commerce, affects businesses, affects investments. And I note that influential legal theorist Joseph Raz discussed this and said one cannot be guided by a retroactive law. And he noted that observance of the rule of law is necessary if the law is to respect human dignity. Respecting human dignity entails treating humans as persons capable of planning and plotting their future. So when you go backwards in time, Brian Overstreet cannot change his actions. He would have made different choices. He would have hired maybe different employees, some from out of state. Maybe he would have invested out of state. They can't do that. So they are being unfairly punished for their actions and rely on California law. And the second reason we should never do this retroactively is we got a benefit. The state of California got a benefit when Brian Overstreet did that for California and started the business and these jobs. And now to take this money back, we have unclean hands. This is not our money. This is money we said we would let you have if you did X, Y, and Z. And when taxpayers do X, Y, and Z, we cannot punish them for that. So.
Any Mr. Overstreet or any of the other business owners describe, I know you talked about it a little bit, describe initially getting the letter or however you were informed that you were going to be taxed on this money. What was that initial month?
That came from me, I believe it was December 27th. I got an email from my law firm that in the subject title, it was sort of a weekly update, and it mentioned the QSBS. And the only reason I opened it was probably the first one I'd ever opened from them was because it had triggered with me that was something we had already availed ourselves out. And I don't want to overemphasize, but I mean, I literally almost fell on the floor because it didn't take long to do the math. And I'm sure the guys up here feel the same way. I picked up the phone, I called my accountant, I called my lawyer, I started calling my co-founders, trying to figure out, can this be true? How is this happening? What in the world is going on here? And unfortunately for us, it was in the middle of the holiday season, so nobody was really around. And it wasn't until January that we started to wait for some uproar, some reaction to this in the media or from Sacramento, and didn't hear any. And that's what prompted me to write a blog post that ultimately got published and went viral. And here I am, for better, for worse. So the reaction was pretty horrible. It still is pretty horrible. I mean, I talk to my wife almost nightly about this, and she's asked me the same question. How are we going to write that check? And I said, well, that's why I'm here. I'm here to fight so that we don't have to. We shouldn't have to. We, the people up here, abided by the law, upheld our end of the bargain, took the tax break that was legally available to us as an incentive for doing what we did. I made decisions, Senator Lieu mentioned it, I made decisions not to hire people out of state during the course of the growth of our company. And it was because we could qualify for this if we ever sold. And so to wrench that away from me after the fact, when I don't have the ability to go back in time and undo those decisions or maybe not sell my business or sell for a higher price, I can't do that. So I'm at the whim and the mercy of the FTB, and hopefully the legislators are going to help us out here. So, and I would urge you certainly to talk to all these gentlemen. They all have unique stories, different takes on all this, and but I think we all are similarly horrified.
So we have affected taxpayers here. So when we conclude this now, then you all can ask them individual questions on their individual circumstances. I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.